I often tell people too, you always did a lot of workshops. And you caught that time, Osha, which I also experienced, of doing a workshop, taking 20, 30 CDs and selling them quickly.
Yes, I still do that.
Do you take CDs? Sure.
The only place where I sell CDs is at the mall and at shows, right? And I make much more money than with any digital platform. Yes,
But I didn't know you were still taking physical copies, right?
I do. I do. Every band like ours, I think any band still takes them, right? You always make a batch to take to shows because they always sell. Fans love to buy the CD, get it autographed. Right. Both in the case of instrumental music and in the case of rock bands, Sinistra sells a lot of CDs at performances. This kind of ends up boosting your fee, right? Of course it does. Merchandise, many times there are bands that earn more from merchandise than from shows. These Brazilian bands, when I go to play in Europe, take a lot of merchandise because the fee is low, but they manage to sell merchandise in euros or dollars, and it makes up for it.
But let's go. Before we get to your current phase, let's go back to Dr. Cinco, the 90s, right? Man, as I told you, I was there at Imperato in 96. You guys were on fire. You were already doing television shows, even. I remember you and Serginho Groisman. Do you remember that, Serginho?
Serginho Groisman, for those who don't know, my great friend, great guitarist, master of production guitars, Sergio Boza, is here watching us. That's not for just anyone, huh? Doing a podcast with Sergio in the audience.
He's here. Considering Eduardo Anoy asking what Edu can or cannot say.
Exactly.
But anyway, even Serginho Buzz, folks, has been invited to a podcast for a long time. So we will be. No, he already accepted. We're arranging it. He will come to Rio. But man, so you were doing television, you were doing things, and for those who don't remember Doctor, yes, who are younger, maybe under 30 years old, because Doctor, yes, when did you stop the activities?
Doctor, yes. Actually, it didn't stop, and it paused. When I left, there was a little hiatus, maybe a year. They came back with a great guitarist who is also a great friend. Tiago, no. But when did you leave? I left about 6, 7 years ago. When I moved here to Itibaya, coincidentally, the Tajima event is now in Itibaya. Look at the luck I had.
Ha ha ha. Yes.
Exactly. And at that time, I was leaving Dr. Yes, right, for personal reasons, which we don't need to discuss. We talked today. We're friends, as we always were. At the time, we had a bit of a disagreement, but today it's been overcome. Not today, it's been a long time already. I participate in some of their events.
You also stayed many years, man. Stayed 20 years?
The guys are like my brothers, you know. I stayed 25 years with them. That's it. In other words, you can count on one hand how many bands stay together for 25 years with the same lineup. Many bands have been around for 20, 30 years, but have gone through 10 lineups. We stayed 25 years with the original lineup.
There's also something interesting, man, that you guys were always a trio. Yes. Nowadays, people struggle to play with backing tracks to fill the stage and have a big sound, right? They use backing tracks full of instruments. Man, you guys always played as a power trio. And the sound was always big, right?
Yeah. When you write music for a power trio, right? We already write the arrangements to really not leave much space, you know? But occasionally we would add some keyboards too. We even did some tours with keyboardists. Because it's nice to have harmony sometimes, right? Especially for the soloist, right? Sometimes during the solo, you imagine a different atmosphere and sometimes some chords are missed. But sometimes not, right? We would take out the keyboardist and do the show and say, well, it's better this way, so we cut the keyboardist. And man,
let's go back to the times of Dr. Yes, during that time, the 90s, you were basically doing shows with Dr. Yes, and doing workshops. You never stopped doing that, right, man? Workshops, right?
No, I never stopped teaching, right? Yeah, today I teach a lot, right? And I never stopped doing workshops because, man, we can't, right? I was never in a mainstream band. In the mainstream, to be able to live off shows, right? And man, I have a family to support. I can't stop. If I stop, something will run over me. The bills will pile up. So that's something I've been doing until today, always. Now, I never stop developing projects or instrumental things in bands. Bands, I always make sure to have a band. I think that even in terms of business, it works better than a solo instrumental career. Few guys like Steve Vai or Satriani, man, managed to reach the mainstream with instrumental music. And I certainly know that I won't be one of them.
No, but if you notice, all around the world, the guys who play instrumental music, in fact, they basically emerged until the 80s.
Yes,
Come on. From the 90s onwards, who makes a living from instrumental music?
but like Satriani is a guy we have to tip our hat to, right? Because in his time, he was a hit making instrumental music. He played on the radio, man.
Music on the video show, man. Video show, for those who don't know, was on Globo's program.
It's impressive. And Vai, too. He lives well, very well, from instrumental music and making extremely complex music, right? Which is not easy to manage, right?
Yes.
Satriani's is even a bit easier, not to belittle. I love Satriani. And I like easier songs, which are simpler to digest, right? I don't judge music by its complexity, right? I think music, man, you have to like it on the first listen. And most of the songs you like on the first listen are easy to digest. I now love the Rolling Stones, damn, man. For me, the Rolling Stones is the greatest rock and roll band in the world. As I said, I'm not looking for complication. Maybe someone just sees my music and says, no, but you don't play the Rolling Stones. No, I don't play it because, man, I don't have the skill to play the Rolling Stones, to play so simply and so cool. Playing simple and cool is an art, man. It's not for everyone. It's not enough just to want it. You'll just keep wanting. Because especially when you're used to playing too many notes and making very complex arrangements, when you try to play like Angus Young and Keith Richards, you can't do it. And when you try, it ends up being faker than a $3 bill, man.
That's why many people, for example, Jeff Beck, I know you're a fan. When I talk about Jeff Beck, there's always someone who says, man, I really can't get into Jeff Beck. I say, man, it's hard not to like Jeff Beck, right? Because even someone who isn't an instrumentalist can listen to Jeff Beck and relate to it, right? But sometimes the guy is also stuck in this pattern of things.
Sometimes I think it's just a phase, right? One day he'll get hooked, and Jeff Beck will become his favorite guitarist, at least for a phase in his life.
Have you not liked Jeff Beck?
No, I've never had a phase where I didn't like Jeff Beck. There were phases when I didn't pay much attention. Because it was the phase of those 80s, right? That avalanche. You're a teenager. At 18, 20 years old, watching Van Halen, Malmsteen, Steve Vai, Paul Gilbert. And then you start to forget a bit about the origins, right? You stop listening so much to Blackmore, who was my first icon, my first icon that really moved me. Jimi Hendrix and Jimmy Page and Jeff Beck, whom I also got to know at the time. And then, obviously, you get surprised by the new things, right? When Van Halen appeared, it was very new and very fantastic. That's obvious, right?
Do you remember the first time you heard Van Halen?
I remember the first LP. Which one was it? The very first album, right? Back then, when we got hold of an album, we'd call our friends and everyone would gather, whoever bought the album first, right? We'd gather at someone's house, have a few drinks, and keep flipping side A, side B, until the record wore out, right? And that was a real blow to the ears, right? A punch, right in the face, right? And Kimim and Yimim, but then you start maturing, man, and you go back to listening to the old guys. I love listening to Deep Purple. I love it. My favorite band might be Deep Purple, Zeppelin, Rush. Rush is the greatest power trio in the world. And Van Halen, there's nothing like it, right, man? Those first Van Halen albums, man. That's why I play guitar. If it weren't for Deep Purple, Led Zeppelin, Rush, Van Halen, I probably wouldn't play guitar. There was a reason to play guitar.